to exclude the press, the public, because of the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972. This meeting is carried out in a hybrid meeting with members attending in person in a council chamber, County Hall, Ruthin, or remotely via video conference. Those attending remotely are kindly asked to mute their microphones unless they are called upon to speak. Members are also asked to have their video switched on throughout the meeting, unless to improve quality of sound, I ask them to turn it on. You will be then expected to restart your video. Please refrain from using a chat facility as the message sent to or visible on the webcast. Those present in the chamber are asked to make sure that they speak directly into their microphone to improve the quality of sound and to help the meeting transparency today. All the business for today's meeting should be conducted through me as the chair. Jock and Val, thank you. And I will just start with bringing in legal officer just to confirm elected members and also those on the committee who are in attendance today.
Diolch, Chair. Bore da, good morning, everyone. In the chamber today, we have Councillor Edwards, Councillor Elson, Councillor Hilditch Roberts, Councillor James, Councillor Jones, Councillor Mendes, Councillor Mullen James, Councillor Parry, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Sanderlands, Councillor Young. On Zoom, we have Councillor Chard, Councillor Evans, Councillor Harland, Councillor Metry, and Councillor Williams. And I understand Councillor Julie Matthews just joined us on Zoom. Thank you. And we also have in attendance Councillor Edwards, Councillor Thomas, and Councillor Hugh Irvine, who are members who aren't on Planning Committee. Diolch.
Okay, Jock and Val for that. And I will start with apologies, please.
So apologies we have from Andrea Tomlin and Councillor Chris Evans.
And yeah, and I'm just going to welcome for the first time Councillor Justine Evans. Welcome. I look forward to working with you on the planning committee and Jock and Val for taking your time to attend today. Councillor Chard, did you want to come in on apologies?
Yes, yes. Councillor Cheryl Williams. Okay.
Okay, and now I'm going to bring in the legal officer to go through declaring any interest members may have for today's meeting. Jock and Val.
Diolch. Members will be aware of the requirement under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interests in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now or as soon as the member affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it is a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the meeting for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal or personal and prejudicial interest is declared today that has not previously been disclosed and recorded, the member concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is either available from the committee support staff in attendance here today or online. Diolch.
Okay, Jock and Val. Anyone need to declare an interest, please, members? Okay, I can't see any in the chamber and none online, so I will move on. Jock and Val, thank you. And the next item is urgent matters agreed by myself as chair. I've got one, and it's in regard to electing a vice chair. Peter Scott's now the chairman of the council. He's had to leave his position as vice chair, and we wish him well in his new role. Do I have any proposers, please, for that role? Okay, Gareth Sandlands, Councillor Gareth Sandlands, please, Jock and Val.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to propose Alan James. Excuse me, I've got a bad throat this morning. Alan's been previously the vice chair of the committee. He is held in quite wide regard for his professionalism and his, a degree of integrity he's got. He's also been previously Rhyl Town Council chair before becoming a county councillor. And for the last 10 years, he's actually completed all his planning training. He's a regular attendance at site meetings, and he's a bloody nice bloke. So it's my pleasure to propose Alan as the vice chair. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you for that. Do I have a seconder for that, please?
Na i eilio y cynnig, derbyn bod o fachgen da iawn. Dwi wedi cydweithio fo dros y blynyddoedd. Pob lwc iddo fo.
Okay, jock and vow for that. Any other nominations, please, before? Okay, none, so that's carried, I believe. We don't need to vote. Okay, okay, would you like to say thank you?
Wait, are we not having a vote?
We don't.
Do we not?
There's no one standing.
Sorry?
There's only you standing, sir.
Oh, right. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, and I didn't recognise some of the words that were being said about me, but yeah, thanks very much indeed. No, well, I knew you'd be on my side as well. So thanks very much, and obviously I'm going to do my very best, as always, and work hard with the officers and with the rest of you. So thanks very much for that confidence. Thank you.
So that's great, and as chair, we have a good working relationship. I could have read the same speech out, so good luck, look forward to working with you, Jock and Vow. Thank you. Okay, members, I'll move on now to the minutes, please. And I will go through first for accuracy, and then I will do the matters arising. So the minutes, page 1, sorry, page 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Okay, members happy with those minutes as accurate, please? Okay. Councillor James moves and seconded Councillor Elson. Any matters arising from those minutes, please? Okay, we're all happy. I'm going to move on. Jock and Vow, thank you for that. Okay, item 5, the applications for permission for development. Items 5 to 7. And also there is some additional information. Can you scan as we're going through the work to make sure you've seen all that? And if you need more time, please ask. There's a lot of work and paperwork in the late reps. Okay, so I am now going to go to item number 5, which is page 21, code 0120220523 MA. The location is GRAIG, Quarry GRAIG Road in Dimbrick. The proposal is consultation application of extension of working limestone, important of inserted waste and restoration of amenity land. The local members are Councillor Pauline Edwards, Delph Jones and Geraint Lloyd Williams. Officer recommendation is to grant. We have 2 speakers, and I will ask the speaker against Mayor Jones to please come up, please. Okay. Before I start that, there is some extra information I'll just bring in before we start. Maybe just bring in some late reps we just had in today off Welsh Government. Jock and Vow.
Diolch, Chair. Just to let the committee and everyone in the chamber know that the council has this morning received a holding direction from the Welsh Government. It's under Article 18 of the Town and Country Planning Development Management Procedure Wales Order 2012. It's in respect of a consolidating application for the extension of winning and working of limestone, importation of inert waste and restoration to amenity land at GRAIG Quarry, GRAIG Road, Denbigh, LL 16 5US, application number 0120220523 MA. And the letter says, I am writing to inform you that the Welsh ministers have been asked to call in the application referred to in the heading to this letter for their own determination. Article 18 of the Town and Country Planning Development Management Procedure Wales Order 2012 enables the Welsh ministers to give directions restricting the grant of permission by a local planning authority I am authorised by the Minister for Climate Change to issue such directions and, in exercise of this authority, I hereby direct Denbighshire County Council, with effect from the dates of this letter, not to grant planning permission in respect of A. Application number 01-2022-0523 MA, referred to in the heading to this letter, or B. Any development of the same kind which is the subject of the application on any site which forms part of or includes the land to which the application relates, without the prior authorisation of the Welsh Ministers. I issue this direction to enable further consideration to be given to whether or not the application should be referred to the Welsh Ministers for their determination. The direction prevents your council only from granting planning permission. It does not prevent it from continuing to process or consult on the application. Neither does it prevent it from refusing planning permission. Your attention is drawn to Article 31, which provides for the Welsh Ministers to vary or cancel this direction in respect of both the land and type of development covered. I will ensure you are informed of the Welsh Minister's decision on whether the application is being called in as soon as it is made. Diolch.
Okay, thanks for that. And as I say, that's come in this morning. I'm going to bring in officers just to clarify where that puts us for today's meeting. Jock and Vow, thank you, Paul.
Diolch, Chair. Bore da. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to members of the public as well. Just for clarity in relation to the letter that was just read out by the legal officer, this is a process within the development management world where Welsh Government do have the right to issue a holding direction to a local authority. So what that holding direction does, it's actually preventing a particular local authority in granting planning permission until the Welsh Government has assessed the proposal themselves in terms of taking in all the relevant information. What the legal officer has also made clear there, that whilst it prevents the local planning authority issuing or granting a planning permission, it does not prevent the local planning authority processing that planning application. And what we need to make clear is that what Welsh Government always look for where they issue a holding direction, and what they will ask us as a council would be, what would the council's decision have been on this application? Whilst they're effectively taken out of our hands at this point in relation to making a determination and granting planning permission, they would also want us to have given them an indication of what our decision would have been. So we need to make it clear to members that this doesn't prevent us continuing with the application at Planning Committee today and to debate it, but the local planning authority could not issue a grant of planning permission based on the holding direction. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Jock and Vow. So I'll bring in the public speaker against Mayor Jones. Jock and Vow, we'll start the clock when you start speaking and you get 3 minutes. Jock and Vow.
Crest Fields and Woods as a cherished place. I do not recognise the land in the officer's report described in facts and measurements. 284 people have made their legitimate objections crystal clear. If the planning policy had been followed through a placemaking process, our feelings about the Crest, its positive impact on our health and well-being, would have been considered at the outset, not dismissed in what has felt like a patronising manner. The council agreed to extend the quarry's operations, not its footprint. Was there a promise that operations would cease in 2028 and the extension was allowed on those grounds? Breedon want to extend the operations by 25 years. You should be assessing this application as if it was a brand new quarry application. The reports state that the nearest residential property is over 250 metres from the proposed extended quarry boundary, outside the recommended 200-metre buffer zone. There are 34 properties within the 200-metre buffer now. Some properties will be 90 metres from the new boundary. I implore you to think about that. A bill going through Westminster now is proposing a distance of 1,000 metres from homes due to the toxic effect of mining. A loss of 4 hectares of BMV agricultural land in a climate emergency with increasing food security is a travesty. Loss of any trees is ecocide. We question the officer's understanding of Chapter 6 when she dismisses the destruction of the nature corridor planted in the 90s. Local scientist Dr. Sue Hewitt, I fundamentally refute the officer's assertion that some nature development during restoration after 25 years meets the criteria of net benefit for biodiversity today? Why are we sending 1/3 of our aggregates from Denbigh to England? Why does the report state that Denbigh is the most strategically placed limestone provider when the regional technical statement states that limestone is more abundant in Flintshire and has historically mainly sold from mould? Are you as a council not encouraged to use recycled aggregates in earth waste? How can you, as councillors, vote in favour of this proposal when there is scarce detail on plans to create a landfill site or the proposed restoration? This application fails to improve the economic, social, environmental and cultural well-being of our area and does not contribute to the statutory well-being goals. We are confident an independent professional would successfully challenge the report's conclusions. Sir David Attenborough, whilst it's tempting to think of those on the front line as the only ones who can make a difference, the truth is every one of us can and must play a part in restoring nature to our isles.
Dr. Vale, thank you. Okay, Jochen Malcolm Ellis, please. Jochen Vale. Right, we start the clock when you start speaking, sir. So ready when you are, Jochen Vale.
Swn i'n hoffi dechrau wrth ddiolch i'r aelodau a'r gadar am adon i siarad i gefnogi y cynllun i estynnu gweithgareddau yn Chwarel Dinbach. Mae'r cais o'ch blaen yn ymdrechu darparu calchfaen i'r ardal am hyd o tua 20 mlynedd arall. Fydd y cynnig o ran rhoi manteision i'r gymuned a'r economi i lleihau hwyl troed carbon a cadarnhau cynnaledwyaidd. Bydd cymeradwyaeth i'r gais yn rhoi dyfodol i'r chwaral ac hefyd yn rhoi diogelwch gwaith i o gwmpas 100 o weithwyr, a'i teuluoedd yn uniongyrchol ac yn anuniongyrchol. Yn sicrhau cyflenwad o galchfaen i'r ardal yn hytrach na drosglwyddo o chwareli eraill Bryden yn Sir Ddarby neu yn ymhellach i ffwrdd. Dydy Bryden ddim yn ceisio cynyddu mwy o symudiadau loris yn y datblygiad hon. Nod Bryden lle bynnag mae'n bosib ydy defnyddio busnesu a chontractwydd lleol i roi hwb a cefnogi yr economi lleol, sydd yn cael effaith cadarnhaol ar lleihau carbon a llai o effaith negyddol ar newid hinsawdd. Mae'r cais sydd ger eich bron yn cynnig cyflwynwi adferiad terfynol a fydd yn cynyddu cynefinoedd ecologol ac yn gwella rhai sydd mewn ffin y gais. Ond na ydynt yn cael eu heffeithio yn uniongyrchol gan y datblygiad. Mae hyn yn cynnwys gwelliannau i'r goedwig o gwmpas ac yn darparu cyffdwr i Great Crested Newts a gwelladu cynefinoedd bats, dormaws, peregrine falcons. Bydd rhan fwy o hyn wedi ei gyflwyno ar ddechrau y datblygiad ac ddim yn dibynnu ar y chwarel yn cael ei adfer gyntaf. Yn ychwanegol i'r uchod, mae Bryden a'r perchenog y tir wedi cynnig gwelliannau sylweddol i'r llwybrau cyhoeddus sydd yn cynnwys arwynebu, cynnal a cadw am fwyd y chwarel, hefyd yn cynnwys hyd ychwanegol o lwybra i'r gogledd o'r chwarel i gadarnhau cyfle i'r gymuned gael mynediad i cefn gwlad agorad i wella iechyd a lles. Felly gofynnwn yn barchus fod aelodau y Pwyllgor yn rhoi pwysau mawr i gefnogi yr argymellion a roddiaid swyddogol i gymeradwyo y gais cynllunio. Diolch yn fawr iawn chi am wrando.
Okay, Jochen Vale, thank you. Okay, members, there's quite a lot of extra information on this, so if you can just make sure you've read it and scan it again as we go through this process. So this application was subject to a site inspection panel meeting on the 8th of December on a very, very wet Friday. Thank you all for attending that. It was a challenge, but you kept at it, and it is appreciated. And I think visiting the site was really helpful for everyone involved. So at the site meeting was myself, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Jones, Councillor Paddy, Councillor James, and I'll just ask if anyone from that site meeting, touching on the site meeting, on what they found valuable or any other points would like us to touch on that. Councillor Jones, talking about.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was a very valuable meeting. I think it was valuable that the whole site had been pegged out for us. Looking at the face, the actual blasting face, and then the bunds, and that was valuable so that we could actually assess and seeing the impact of that. I think lots of the questions that we raised we can see in the late reps, so I won't go through those. And I think those were valuable for us to get answers to those questions as well.
Councillor Paddy, please.
Yeah, as Denby Mags member, and member of the independent party, independent group, sorry. I went to visit the site as well, and it was good to see. I had been there before, and it was good to see it, like Dennis said, pegged out, so we could actually sort of get a bit of a picture and see how close we would be to the woods and how close we would be to the houses and whatever. So we had a good feel of that. So I won't go on anymore. That's just about the site visit.
That's good. Okay. Okay, members, I'm now going to bring in the local member. Councillor Jones, would like to say a few words on the application.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. And can I thank both the speakers, Bryden, and on behalf of the local residents. I know it's not an easy thing to do, so we do thank you and appreciate your insights and your inputs into the process. Can I also thank Hannah for her report? It's a comprehensive report and it's given us a lot to read. Ultimately, of course, it is our decision as members of this planning committee to come to a view that will all allow us to come to a decision. This is a significant and important decision of principle this morning, so I'm going to beg your indulgence this morning, Chair, as I may go on a bit more than usual. If that's possible, I hear you think. But I believe it is important for points to be raised to be given due consideration. So I beg your indulgence, please. As you'll have seen from the pack, there has been an active limestone quarry in operation close to this site for a considerable amount of time. Currently a 28-hectare site with planning controls in place since 1948, if I'm correct, with the most recent iteration of which as recently as the 3rd of October 2022, when a variation of time limiting condition to allow time to work, permitting reserves and then restore the site was granted, and that's barely 12 months ago. There are a few key points I feel it's important to draw attention to. Firstly, Planning Policy Wales 11, sections 3.58 and 3.59 obliges weight to be given to protecting land of grades 1, 2 and 3A, quality in agricultural land classification. It also notes that this land is considered the best and most versatile and indicates that land of this quality should only be developed if there's an overriding need for that development. As we can see from this report, the grading the land on this site was considering today is cited as 1.5 hectares grade 2 and 2.5 hectares grade 3A, and the remainder non-agricultural land, so largely B&B agricultural land. Secondly, that the site of this application is located outside the designated development boundary in the current adopted local development plan and is in very close proximity to the Crestmawr Wood, a site of special scientific interest, and the GRAIG Quarry SSSI. Thirdly, that Planning Policy Wales 11 states, and I quote, extensions to existing mineral working, whether they be time, lateral or depth extensions, should be considered in the same manner as applications for new sites.
Applications will need to be considered taking into account the impact on the site as a whole, the wider surroundings, and will need to be considered on its own merits. Bear with me. I believe, therefore, that the key task for us as a planning committee is to determine whether we can justify granting permission for this effectively new endeavour on 5 hectares of BMV agricultural land outside the development boundary. I would liken this to us having to decide as to whether we're happy to grant an application for a new golf course and a clubhouse on the same site type of scenario. So why would we even contemplate taking such a monumental decision? Well, the arguments being submitted in the report is on the basis of a need as assessed on the currently adopted local development plan dated 2006 to 21, and in order to satisfy a currently assessed need of a sub-region based on the same LDP. Now, this is where I truly struggle to be able to justify looking at this application in any way favourably. Whilst I am sure most of us would acknowledge that a certain level of supply of material is needed for the construction industry, I would also strongly argue, as quoted in the Minerals Tan Note 1, this cannot be at the unacceptable detriment of the environment or amenity. As we know, the assessment of housing need conducted as part of this LDP was circa 7,500 homes for Denbighshire, a figure we now know, and as have been acknowledged by Welsh Government, was greatly overcalculated. So I think it's very relevant and proper to quote to you the current figures under discussion for Denbighshire as part of the current soon-to-be completed review for 2018-33. A short aside, but nevertheless a pertinent point here, I feel, would be to say that the completion and adoption of the revised LDP was only delayed because of the COVID pandemic, something that was outside all of our control. Anyway, I'm sure the officers will endeavour to remind us of the set protocol in place and that they can only make judgments based on documents already in place. However, I believe that it is also vitally important for the committee to remember that we need to consider all that we know when coming to a far-reaching judgment. So the current preferred Denbighshire development strategy, looking at the level of growth for housing over the period 18 to 33, is seen to be 3,275 homes, less than half that of this current LDP. Given that there's a need for a degree of flexibility, contingency 500 added, that gives us 3,775. Given also that the new plan was due to be set a few years ago, from 2018 onwards, all recorded completions since the 1st of April 2018 are to be counted against this requirement. So up to the 1st of April 2023, that's the most recent data I have, this amounts to 1,483 of those already completed. The report also places consideration on sites under construction as of April 23, i.e. spades in the ground, as well as those that are committed through the planning permission process, which officers are confident will be delivered. 489 under construction and a further 389 committed as of April 23, giving us the total of 2,365. Given that the current regional technical statement second review, endorsed as recently as January 21, states, and I quote, with regards to Denbighshire local authority area, the RTS2 does not require Denbighshire to make any crushed rock allocations based on the permitted reserves and the apportionment figure calculated in the RTS2. This statement is based, to my mind, on an out-of-date, grossly overcalculated demand for circa 7,500 homes that the report before us is required to base this calculation on. How can we, therefore, in any way use this as a true basis for our decision here today? When we know the currently acknowledged calculations of housing growth need is less than half that of the current LDP, and more importantly, that 70% of that calculated need has or is currently in the process of being delivered without the need for the material being requested in this application. In essence, therefore, we're being asked to approve an application for material that Denbighshire did not assess as a need based on outdated data, and in future will have far less of a need for, given that data I've already quoted. We must also remember that an application by Handra Quarry based in Flintshire, a substantial quarry capable of producing circa 34 million tonnes, if I'm correct, of material, has very recently been approved. I also question what, if any, effort has been made to investigate the numerous other mothballed quarries in the sub-region for reserves held there before recommending for the granting of a further 25-plus-year extension to Denby Quarry, as is the requirement for new quarries under Planning Policy Wales 11. As an aside, I also think it is relevant for us to be reminded that Welsh Government currently view is to halt major infrastructure such as roads, bridges. Development of alternative actual is their preferred way of thinking. The comparatively recent announcement from England for the cancellation of HS2 and the current flatlining of the economy, all making it difficult to see where the demand needed to justify granting this application would be coming from. Added to this, I have significant concerns relating to how we can truly be assured that the site of significant scientific interest in Crestwood, the woodland, as I quote, is one of the very best examples in Clwyd of a woodland type occurring mainly in southeast England, but also in other parts of Britain. I'm not convinced that the SSSI woodland running directly parallel and very near to the proposed new extraction area, in places as close as 40 metres, would be adequately protected by the proposed 10-metre high bund and the vegetation that will take 15 years to mature. And this is where I'd like to just look at Planning Policy Chapter 6, because I think this is a pertinent point to look at that. Chapter 6 gives us enhanced requirements for environmental protection. And if I can quote from here, it says under 6.4.17, under sites of special scientific interest, there's a presumption against all other forms of development in an SSSI as a matter of principle. And this presumption should be appropriately reflected in development plans and development management decisions. There is also a presumption against development not within SSSI, but likely to damage an SSSI. It also says, quotes further on, to seek an NRW, and get the number for you, 6.4.17, to get NRW perspective on this. I've been looking at the submission put in by NRW, which is the last I can see is dated on the 2nd of November, if I'm right. And from what I can see from this, they have significant concerns. They said that they can, but I can see that it says about conditions. But this is based, from what I can see, on the consultation topics that they based their assessment on September 2018. So can you clarify whether this has been updated and whether this is relevant in Chapter 6? I'm concerned, therefore, that the safeguarding of this quite rare and endangered woodland can be guaranteed with the stated mitigations for dust and vibrations mentioned in the report. And which I can see there are lots of conditions, but I'm concerned that it's difficult for us to come to a guaranteed and comprehensive view on that when we don't actually have those details in front of us. Ultimately, our role as councillors is to take a full, balanced and proportionate view of matters. As such, the view of the 271 submissions made in opposition to this matter by local residents who will be directly affected by this decision for the next 25 plus years must be a key factor in our decision-making process today. Despite blasting data reported as sitting within the permitted legal window, which I don't dispute, the real lived experience of these residents of the community of Denby is a very different reality. During a recent liaison quarry meeting, in fact, breeding officers acknowledged that vibrations may be able to be felt, rattling and a certain degree of shaking can occur due to the over air pressure effect, which cannot be fully predicted. Whilst deemed to be safe and within legal and permitted limits, it's also a very real and lived part of people's lives that causes a detrimental effect upon people's amenity and well-being, and as such must be a consideration. I could go on and raise issues surrounding concerns raised by the North Wales Wildlife Trust, on which I'd like more clarification about their data and the surveys that they've taken on the impact the site might have on DCC climate change, net zero emergency targets and other matters. I've spoken quite long enough. In conclusion, I cannot support this application because it's sited on B&V agricultural land. It's outside the designated development boundary. It's within Denbighshire, a region that currently does not require additional aggregates. It's within an authority that calculates a dramatically reduced housing growth levels for the new LDP. It runs closely parallel to an SSSI without sufficient, in my mind, detailed approved mitigations, and against the clear and understandable legitimate concerns of a significant body of local residents whose lived experience, amenity and well-being that has, is and would be significantly impacted by the continuation of the quarry workings in close proximity to their homes. I believe the extension of the current planning permission was granted 12 months ago. The extraction of the remainder of the material and restoration of the site was the right decision. I strongly arguments that lead me to conclude that continuation of this quarry on this site at this time cannot be merited. Thank you for your time.
Councillor Metri, can you have your camera on, please? And Councillor Williams, you do need your cameras on during the debate, so we know you're taking part, please. Jochen Vout. Can I just clarify, was you proposing or just making a statement there?
Listen to the debate.
Okay, Jochen Vout, that's okay. Councillor Edwards, please. The other local member. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to state how much I fully support the statements from Councillor Jones and all the issues around the LDP, the importance of the best and most versatile land, and the problems with the being so close to the SSSI. But I do feel that it's my duty here to represent the residents of my ward. And really, I've tried to support the people since 2022 and prior to that, really, when this planning application was submitted. And there are over 250 letters of objections from Denby residents voicing various concerns. Objections received by Dr. James Davis, MP, Mr. Lleir Griffith, Member of Senedd, and Denby Town Council. The concerns people have been around increased noise and dust and harmful particulates in the air from both the quarry and the heavy traffic, unacceptable levels of noise from the quarry, including machinery and operational noise, loss of green space and natural environment used for leisure activities, loss of a well-used public footpath which has historic importance to many. No benefit to Denby people. Is Denby to be sentenced to 25 years of dust and noise when the limestone isn't required in the locality? There's structural impact on nearby properties, causing cracks in plaster and external walls. The effect of mental health and well-being from blasting and property shaking as a result of the blasting at the quarry. Detrimental impact of the destruction of the landscape and harmful visual impact. And the environmental impact on Wood and GRAIG quarry sites of SSIs and its species from vibration, noise, dust, human activity and industrial machines. Loss of trees and woodland, ancient woodland, and the impact on carbon absorption. Irreversible harm to the ecosystem and loss of habitats, and the impact on local highway network and its capacity to accommodate the increase in quarry vehicles, and of course the impact of property values. You can see in that there are themes that show how concerned the residents are about the impact of this extension should it be granted permission. When you consider these concerns voiced by residents, it occurred to me that they are all issues that are covered by the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015. The goals of this act would appear to be very relevant. A healthier Wales, a society in which people's physical and mental well-being is maximised and in which choices and behaviours that benefit future health are understood. A Wales of cohesive communities, attractive, viable, safe and well-connected communities. A resilient Wales, a nation which maintains and enhances a biodiverse natural environment with healthy, functioning ecosystems that support social, economic and ecological resilience and the capacity to adapt to change. A globally responsible Wales, a nation which, when doing anything to improve the economic, social, environmental and cultural well-being of Wales, takes account of whether doing such a thing may make a positive contribution to global well-being. Surely these goals should be taken into consideration when considering this application. Of note, a frequent mention in the objections also made reference to the fact that this application is contrary to Denbigh County Council policies on climate change and the goals of decarbonisation. If I may just quote some figures, limestone mining extraction generates about 3.16 kilograms of carbon per tonne. The extraction plan for GRAIG quarry would be equal to the extraction of 200,000 tonnes per year for 25 years. This represents a carbon footprint of 15.8 million tonnes. Wales's total footprint is approximately 41 million tonnes, so this quarry would be producing more than 1.5% of all Welsh carbon. That figure seems shocking, so I will repeat it, that an industry in Denbigh town would be producing 1.5% of Wales' total carbon footprint. And these calculations don't take into account the secondary carbon emissions coming from carbon produced by the backfilling or any off-site processing. In 2019, Denbighshire County Council declared a climate change and ecological emergency and consequently changed its constitution in 2000. Its pledge is to achieve net carbon zero by 2030 and be an ecologically positive council. Isn't this a perfect opportunity for Denbighshire to show their commitment to that pledge? I feel strongly that this issue requires further debate. The people of Denbigh have had to live with the effects of this quarry for decades, and we're anticipating some respite with the expected total closure of the quarry. Is it reasonable to expect the people of Denbigh to put up with the effects of the quarry for another 25 years? Do they have to tolerate the dust and noise even when there is no local need for the limestone? Should we allow this blot on the landscape, which is destroying such a well-established, ecologically important area of the town? In conclusion, I would implore that the concerns raised by the residents should be heeded and given consideration, and this planning application is refused. Thank you.
Okay, I am just going to bring officers in now. I've had two members and I'll go back. I can see Councillor Harland. I will bring you in, but I'm just going to let officers respond just to give the debate some momentum. If you can respond to the points made, please, that'd be great. Thank you, officers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thank you to the local members for their thorough speeches there, containing a lot of relevant information and a lot of relevant points in relation to this. Obviously, got to admit, a difficult planning application for us all to be determining. Officers, obviously, it's our job to go through all the relevant material planning considerations. And what we do here in Denbighshire with applications that relate to minerals and waste, we're part of a shared North Wales service that deals with all the local authorities across North Wales, and Flintshire County Council manages that shared service for us. So any applications of this nature, we liaise with our colleagues at Flintshire County Council. So I need to introduce Hannah Parrish, who's the manager of the North Wales Shared Minerals and Waste Service. She's been the case officer on this application. Obviously, she's written a very detailed and thorough report that you've all gone through. Some of the relevant points that have been made there, I think, need to be directed to Hannah to answer some of those questions, and I can come back in at the end. So I'll just introduce Hannah to go through some of those points. Thank you, Chair.
Would it be of assistance to just summarise the proposal and then address the points that the local members, or are you happy that the report is as read with the late representations? Okay.
Touch on the issues.
Okay.
Thank you, Giacomo.
So, with regards to clarification on data, well, that was the first point that I've made a note of. There's concerns with regards to the lineage of the data in terms of ecological surveys. This application has taken a long time to actually put together in terms of the surveys that were required to support the environmental statements. this application has taken a considerable amount of time for consideration, with lots of external consultation with expertise that we did not have within the council. So that's the reason why there's been a delay in getting this report to you. Notwithstanding the fact that there are ecological surveys that are of a certain age, we have acknowledged this, and within the recommended conditions, particularly 36 to 38, prior to any development within each phase, further surveys would be required. So if members would like to refer to those conditions, they're conditions 36 to 38 within the report pack at page 103. They're quite detailed. I won't go into the detail, but we're certain that should members resolve to grant, there will be sufficient control and certainty that any development would not harm the protected species, and any protected species that were found would have to be, works would have to be done under licence. So should there be any further clarification on these points, I'm happy to address those after. In terms of the conclusions of the local members, it was raised that the proposal would effectively remove 4 hectares of best and most versatile agricultural land. Within the report, it notes that the department in Welsh Government who deal with the agricultural land and soils team have not objected to the application, and this is summarised within the report. Bear with me on the in the conclusion at paragraph 5.4, noting that there is an overriding need for the aggregate, therefore this would outweigh the agricultural land being removed. That brings me on to need, which has been raised as a concern and linked with being outside of the development boundary, which are related. So in terms of the preparation of the local development plan, yes, the local development plan was drawn up in the early 2000s, and in terms of looking at allocations for new limestone crushed rock quarries, the data was used on the regional technical statement dated 2009. So therefore, that data has been updated twice. There's been 2 further reviews. So if members will just kind of put in the picture of when officers are putting together evidence for the local plan, we're using evidence from the regional technical statement in 2009, and every 5 years that is updated. And we are now, our evidence is the regional technical statement 2, which states that, quite rightly, as the councillors have mentioned, that there is no need for Denbighshire to provide any allocations in the local plan. The regional technical statement also allows for sub-regional collaboration should a particular council area not be able to provide for their allocations in the RTS. And so back in 2001, again, it's within the report, the members of the strategic planning group resolved to endorse a collaboration agreement. So in terms of the need, whilst there is no need for Denby to provide an allocation, on a sub-regional scale, there is a need based on the regional technical statement 2. Clearly when the first local plan was adopted, prior to when the evidence was being gathered, there was no need. Therefore, no allocation was required in the local plan. So I think that's a really important point for members to understand, that it would not have been appropriate or sound to provide an allocation in the plan at that time. Therefore, the policies within the plan allow for applications to come forward to be considered when data has been updated. The local plan period is 15 years. The RTS review is every 5 years, so that data can be taken into account, that it's a fact that there is a sub-regional need. So coming back to the point that it's outside of the development boundary, it would not be appropriate to propose a quarry within the development boundary, clearly because there's residential properties. We have policies within the plan for buffer zones, which has been discussed already. For hard rock quarries, that's 200 metres. And to be clear, there are no properties within the 200-metre buffer zone, and this proposal would not bring any quarry development nearer to residential properties. So yes, whilst there is no allocation in the plan, there are policies within the plan to allow for consideration, subject to all things being considered and being in compliance with the policies. The report has concluded that, in my view, that the proposal is in accordance with those policies within the local plan and PPW. So in terms of need, I hope I've explained that it's quite a complicated situation. And yes, it is not, there is no allocation in the plan, but at the time of drafting that plan, there was no need. There is now a demonstrable need, and that need has outweighed the uptake of 4 hectares of BMV land. So we are in the planning balance concluding that the need for aggregate is greater than the need for the 4 hectares of agricultural land. Mention has been made with regards to the concern on the SSSI, which is in close proximity to the proposed extraction area. As part of the original 1992 consent, there was a Section 106 agreement for the management of those crest woods. When members resolved to grant in 2020 for the extension of time, that Section 106 agreement was extended to include the T crest, the T Mawr, as well as crest Mawr. And should planning permission be granted, that management, the requirement and obligation for a management plan would be taken over, and a further Section 106 deed of variation would be required. So in terms of that management of the woodland, management plans would need to be drawn up, and we would within the 106 agreement, there's a requirement to submit those management plans for our review, so that we are certain that the proposal, that the operations would not harm the SSSI. Mention has been made to reference within Planning Policy Wales and how extensions to applications should be considered as a new application. This has been submitted with an environmental statement, and it has been considered as a new application with a large raft of technical documents and proposals to grant with some 50 conditions. With regards to the effect on amenity and blasting and noise and dust, that is also acknowledged within the report. We are confident that management controls and conditions within the proposed conditions would control that to acceptable limits. We, as a North Wales shared service, regularly monitor the conditions. We've got a team of monitoring officers that would go, should planning permission be granted, we would go and make sure these conditions are being complied with. In terms of loss of ancient woodland was mentioned, just to be clear, there are no trees proposed within the application area that are protected, and they are not ancient woodland designation. Mention has been made, acknowledged to the climate change issues and the issue of carbon dioxide emissions. So whilst it's a fact that limestone contains carbon, it's difficult to mitigate in terms of when there isn't, people still need to build roads, people still need asphalt. Well, we as a society have, there are products that use limestone, therefore carbon dioxide is emitted. However, companies are making efforts to decarbonise their products, and also I did some research in terms of the agricultural lime, which is 40% of the output of the quarry. A lot's been mentioned on the need for aggregates, but there's also a need for the agricultural lime. Details within the late observation corroborates the quality of that ag lime. and I've been reading with regards to the emissions of carbon dioxide that I'm not a scientist, I'm a planning officer, but from what I've read, I'll just make sure I get my notes so that I can quote it properly. So apologies, just let me get my notes. Too many. So in terms of, it was university research that I was reading, indicating that it's unlikely that carbon from ag lime is released to the atmosphere following the application of soil. So notwithstanding the products out of the quarry are effectively, there is carbon dioxide emitted, and also the offset of the transport as well. The proposed restoration also includes considerable amount of woodland planting, so therefore the restoration proposals would also offset any carbon dioxide. So I hope that's clarified that. They are all the issues that I made note of.
Yeah, I mean, we
Okay.
can come back to them. Just,
Okay.
just for clarification, and that's, this is me as chair trying to be balanced. So the sub-regional agreement is an agreement, but if the legal officer can confirm, so we have an agreement between Wrexham, Flintshire and Denbighshire, but the legal decision on whether you agree to supply another county is still with the relevant planning committee. Can you just confirm that? Because we do have an agreement, but just the lawfulness of who the decision makers are, please, before I go forward.
Yes, that is a decision for the planning committee.
And that's fine, just so we know there's agreement, but it's this committee's, your decision today. I know it's a big one, but I just wanted that clarifying. I am now going to bring in Councillor Harland, who's been waiting patiently, jockeying about.
Chair, I'd just like to back up Councillor Edwards and Councillor Jones's extensive information regarding this application. The extension of this quarry will yield 4.4 million tonnes of limestone. If this is used for the production of cement, that will give off an extra 4.3 million tonnes of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. This represents 285,000 tonnes per year over the next 15 years. The council's own net carbon zero position in 2020 was only 16,500 tonnes per year, almost 20 times lower. If we are to grant this extension of the quarry, the resulting huge increase in carbon emissions will dwarf all the planned carbon emission savings that we are planning to make as a council. I don't see any mention of the direct and indirect impact of its proposal on climate change. The applicant needs to address this in line with our council's current climate and ecological change strategy. And I would support a refusal of the application on these grounds. Diolch, Chair.
Okay, jockeying about, thanks for that. Councillor Paddy, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just one of the points on page 63, which where North Wales Wildlife Trust objects to the planning application concerns with regard to the impact of wildlife may not have been adequately addressed and which could affect the success of mitigating measures. North Wales Wildlife Trust have concerns the majority of the wildlife surveys that accompanied the application are out of date. They are also concerned with regard to the mitigation works proposed, particularly in relation to the replacement planting, and questions in this would adequately mitigate the loss of regeneration of the woods. What I'd like to put a condition today, Chair, if the application goes forward for grant, if it does, that this is a condition put in that this new report comes back to planning before it's made a decision, so we can see the full proper report on this, the up-to-date report on this one before it goes to planning. That's just one of my questions. Just on my bit of it, I just need to support Delitha and Pauline really on their speech today. I'm going to go on about the LDP a little bit because we're in the old LDP. This isn't in the LDP, and just for people to understand why quarries aren't in the LDP, most of the quarries in Denbighshire, Flintshire and Wrexham were actually quarries before any LDP was even thought about. So they were there before. It's their historical bits of kit there. And like Dalit said, if you wanted to build a race course, golf course, garage or anything on this bit of land here, it's out the LDP, you wouldn't get it. And I'll take you back a little bit in history of our council, of when we wanted to put in, if you remember the Gypsy and Travellers sites, we wanted to put into Greengate Farm in St Asaph, which was out of the LDP. Well, when we put that into planning, it was refused on planning because it was out of the LDP and various other reasons. And then we put a proposal in then that if we need a Gypsy and Traveller situation in Denbighshire, which I think has been proved now we do, it comes into the new LDP. So I think what should happen with any quarrying, if there's a need for it, it should come to the LDP and then come into the LDP so that you can show that there's actually need in the area to go through the process properly. So that's my bit on the LDP. I mean, I've asked residents in Denbighshire, and that, you know, my father used to carry from Denbighshire Quarry. I don't have to declare an interest in that because he's been dead over 30 years. But, you know, they carry from there. But, you know, people in Denby have put up with vibrations and bangs and whatever from the quarry for over the years. I don't think we should have historic that going forward anymore to supply, because there isn't a proof of the need, really. I think if it was really questioned, because we're going back on, Hannah mentioned a report from 2001 and the ongoing every 5 years. But we know ourselves here with our old LDP and the housing needs that were shown with the old LDP and showing the housing needs in the new LDP that we're looking at, we were about 7 or 8,000 houses too many. Somebody will know the amount better than me. So we don't need the aggregates there to build those houses that aren't needed. I'm going to touch a little bit on the lime, because I know there's a big push on the lime, and I think that's sort of really a bit of a steer to take it to show there's a need for it. I mean, I'm an agronomist and I don't sell lime at all, so I've got no commercial reason to say anything different on it. But most of the lime that comes out of North Wales, if it's classed as lime, because it is screened lime. Any agricultural farmer who's looking for lime will be looking for ground lime. And the difference in screened lime and ground lime is the particle size of it. Screened lime is bigger than ground lime. Ground lime breaks down much quicker, because when they want to lime the field to get it correct, it works an awful lot quicker. I'm not going to have on about that one. Yeah, I think I've said enough for now. I might come back later if I pick up something, but I'm supporting Delith on this one. And Polly.
Okay, is there any points there? And then there was a point raised about the traffic impact. So we've got the traffic officer here. It was mentioned about the capacity issues. If you can just touch on that. So we're touching on everything raised. Any thoughts on that, please, John?
Morning. The applicant has confirmed that the additional reserve is to be exported in HGVs via the existing Hall Road and utilisation of the existing access to the A525, A4, 543 roundabout through Colomendy Industrial Estate. The restoration material will be imported to the site. This would be restricted to 100,000 tonnes per annum, and therefore this would not represent any increase in vehicular traffic on the highway network over and above what has already been deemed acceptable in planning terms when previous applications has been considered previously historically. As a result, there would be, in our opinion, no significant change in terms of vehicle activity associated with the quarry compared with the current and ongoing situation that had already been approved. Therefore, as a highway authority, we don't consider there would be a reason to refuse this on highway grounds. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Jochen Vow. Councillor Roberts, please. Jochen Vow.
Dwi am siarad yn Gymraeg, wrth gwrs. Dwi yn newydd i'r Pwyllgor Cynllunio yma, wedi fod yn cadeirydd y sir. Ac fyswn i'n byw yn Dinbych, mi fyswn i yn erbyn y cynllun yma 100%. Ga i ddarllen be mae Lly'r Hughes Griffiths wedi rhoi chi yn Saesneg. Planning permission should not be granted in areas outside those identified in the plan, except where the mineral is needed to make good and a proven shortfall in supply, and where the proposal demonstrably proven to be environmentally acceptable and to have an amenity of nearby, not to have no adverse impact on the amenity to nearby residents or communities. Yn anffodus, mae'r chwarel yma yn ymyl tre brysur. Felly dyna un rheswm dwi'n wrthwynebu, achos mae'n mynd i effeithio ar y bobl sydd yn byw yn y dre, Mae yr awyr am gael ei effeithio arnyn nhw a mi fydd ei sefyllfa nhw'n waith. Hefyd, y tai sydd yn ymyl, o'ch chi newydd clywed un yn sôn 1,000 o metrau yn Senedd lawr yn Llundain. Mae hynny gobeithio mynd i ddod i Gymru. Felly, fedra i ddim ddod o'r ochr y chwarel ar hyn o bryd. Felly, dwi'n gwrthwynebu 100% ac yn cytuno efo Delyth a Pauline ac eraill sydd wedi siarad. Gwrthwynebiad pendant. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. Any points you wanted to touch on before I bring in someone else? Officers? Okay. Councillor Hilders Roberts, please. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.
Bore da, and hi Hannah, we haven't met in committee before. One simple question before we go any further. Granting this application, will it, yes or no, increase the carbon footprint of Denby? Can I just have that answer before I carry on? Just that simple question. In your own time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll jump in. It is a very difficult question to answer. I understand why it's been asked. I think, as Hannah's outlined in detail in the report there are always going to be sort of conflicting issues in relation to this type of proposal. We're not going to be able to answer that, Councillor Hilditch Roberts, I think in a clear yes or no, because we...
Well, let me answer it, right? Yes. Fundamentally, without a shadow of a doubt, I don't care where you're hiding, that is where we're going to end up, okay? Now, this is an authority which is a carbon emergency, yeah? And I'm almost going to drop the mic there and leave it at that, but I ain't going to. What I want to say is, I'm getting a bit frustrated sitting here today because I find we're hiding behind minerals. That seems to be the answer to everything, okay? So let me turn it into reality then, yeah? You've told me there is no need in Denbighshire, no need. It's a sub-regional need, okay, which is a very, very different. So we're saying there's no need. But what we're saying as a local authority is there's a need of over 800 homes for the next 10 years in Denby. So let me turn it on its head. I'm rocking up now to the crest. I want to put 500 houses up there. You'd laugh me out the building. Absolutely wouldn't entertain me. But I'm saying there's a need, a qualified need by the work that's been done. So we're putting something outside of the LDP, yeah, outside of the LDP, which is really, really important, right, that we do have no need for. You know, somebody mentioned the Gypsy Traveller. Actually, the need wasn't qualified at that time and has changed over time, and need does change over time. But what I'm saying is you quote, and I think you used, Hannah, your view, your opinion. That's what this is about, my opinion, your opinion. You quoted Welsh Government not objected, overriding need, I think was your quote. Well, they're sitting at a desk in the backyard. They have no reality. Yeah, they don't live in the area. They don't breathe the area. They don't have to wash their cars in the area. They don't have their children living in the area. And it's easy to do a desk exercise, but it's the people like this that have to live every day in that environment. Now, you quote that the houses won't be affected. Well, for my naked eye, I'm looking at this, you know, it is an extension of an existing quarry. Yeah, let's not hide from that, even though you say you're treating it as a new one, it's an extension. So therefore, the quarry gets bigger, the area opens up more, the noise becomes more. And I acknowledge that you've said that, you know, you acknowledge in the report the conditions. I think when I started to read the conditions, I nearly fell asleep. Because how many conditions, what have you got? An army there to manage these? Things happen at night, things happen in the day, unless we know about the lasers in Rithyn, you know, with the smoke. So some of my colleagues here will remember the issues that we've had with there. Struggling to manage that because officers are in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're not standing there whilst things are happening. You're not, you Paul? Okay. So what I'm saying is, I want to compliment Delith and Pauline on the work that they've done and the research on this, because I think, Denby, you've got two great voices there speaking on your behalf. But at the end of the day, it is increasing the carbon footprint outside the LDP. Yeah, the environmental impact is huge on here. And I urge every single member of this committee that if you vote for this, you shouldn't be sleeping tonight.
Councillor Ellison, please, Jochen Vout.
Thank you, Chair. Two very quick points. One of which I think has partly been covered already is the fact that this is being treated as a new application. And prior to coming to this committee meeting, I've been reading the papers. I wasn't quite totally aware of that. It was not very clear that it was. And I was thinking, well, if it was a new application, we would check it out. So that's my first sort of thing. But it is actually a new application, which is interesting. So it's going to be a new quarry. And the second point, very briefly, is on balance, there are 100 people that work there, and there's those 100 livelihoods which I was concerned about. But I understand, and maybe I need to be clarified on this, that those people would be re-employed elsewhere and therefore would not be lose their livelihoods. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think it's 100 working on site. I think that's the total jobs created, but I'll ask for clarification on that. We're giving quite a bit of weight on the need, and I think the need is 3,500 tonnes. Yeah, so explain if we've got that need and we know what it is. Just again to clarify, we've gone a 50% over that. No needed membership. No, I know these members, but you've got a figure there, and it's more. So you've got a figure of what you think the need is, 3,500, and you give 50% more. So just explain why we'd do that on what, if we gave it permission, what would come out is more. Just reading the documents today. So if you're saying it's a need, why would you then give 50% more? Just to explain that, and also touch on the jobs and whether it's the other bit on the is it a new application, needs to be clarifying for the member. Councillor Mullen James, I'll just bring you in while the officers are looking for that piece of information. Jochen Vout, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, very much. Thank you, everybody, for all the input today. I think it's been a really good debate, and people have done a lot of research, and I congratulate them on that. Can I just have one thing made clear, please? We are in collaboration with, as you said, other authorities on this matter, and we have, as it's been alleged today, have no need in Denbighshire for the aggregate at this time. But it must be that there are other authorities that need this aggregate. Now, when we need something that we haven't got, we therefore go to another authority to get that need. So somebody else in another authority is probably sitting in a committee somewhere having the same discussion that we're having today. Can officers make that clear for me, please?
Okay, happy to come in now. Okay, then a couple of points, Jochen Vout, thank you.
So Councillor Mullen James makes a very good point there. I think we were talking about this back in 2019, 2020 when we were looking at the extension of time. So in terms of minerals can only be worked where they are, and that is a fact. And Denbighshire does not have all the minerals that we as a society would use. For example, in the winter months coming up, there'll be salt coming in from Winsford salt mines. You know, that is being provided by those areas that have those minerals. We need all the different things. You know, there's technology that comes from all over the world. In terms of the sub-regional need, there is a sub-regional need based on the evidence that we have. And in terms of your query with regards to the...
Someone's mentioned to me now, I said I'd raise the point. You've got a need of 3,500 tonnes, but the need is 50% more if this goes ahead. So if you're given a need, I understand that argument. It's up for members to decide whether that's strong enough. But the point is then you're going over that. and that feels strange when you're reading the documents because it's almost a contradiction. So just explain why you would allow that. So understand you're saying a figure and that's the need, but then you've gone over that by 50% and supported it. I think we need to understand why you would do that, or officers.
So apologies if the report isn't clear with that regard. It's a minimum, because these types of proposals, they aren't, no quarry operator would just go, right, well, that's it. That's all they're saying we're going to need for the plan period or the RTS period. It is a minimum requirement within all the documents. And in terms of just so that it is quite a complicated consideration. So I've just got the notes from when the LDP was considered, going back to why there isn't an allocation within the plan. It's for crushed rock, allocations are required for the plan period, which is 15 years, plus a further 10 years, because of the length of time that it takes for quarries to come through to planning and then getting on board for sort of the actual operation, getting the infrastructure here. This is an extension to a quarry, so therefore the infrastructure is already there. And the comment with regards to it's being considered as a new application, and that is in terms of the information that was required. I'm not sure whether I'm kind of, is that coming across sufficiently?
Has that answered your question, Councillor Mullin-James?
Yes, I think that it does answer the question. Whether it goes far enough because of the situation we're in here is another question.
I think just before bringing everyone in, it's a balancing act, and members will have to judge whether they wish to support it going out the area. It's a balancing act, but we have to take the whole view on it of the impact. But I understand what you're saying, but members broadly, I think you've explained it. Yeah, okay, yeah, so I think that's okay. So I'm going to bring Councillor Parry in now, talking about.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to go back onto the LDP again, and just what Hannah said then, it's an extension of the quarry, it's a new application, very similar to, you know, I'm just thinking we have our LDP, which controls what we do in planning in Denbighshire. Denbighshire Quarry's been there for a long, long time, longer than I've been about. And we've had LDPs going before. So why haven't they brought previously in the old LDP or in the new LDP any plan to sort of mitigate any extension they needed? I'm just going there. Now, Hannah mentioned that we have an extension on the quarries. It's a new application, but it's an extension to an existing quarry. Now, if I was Mr. RHYL building houses in RHYL, and I've got a big housing estate there, and then I want to extend it there, they wouldn't give planning just because it's an extension of a housing estate. If it wasn't in the LDP, Mr. RHYL or Mervyn Parry wouldn't get it. It'd have to be in the LDP. And if they planned on that, they'd have to plan to put that extra land within the LDP to supply the need going forward. So I think we've got to understand that the LDP is our important part for members within Denbighshire to control what we do in planning. And if Denby Quarry wanted to and knew they wanted to increase this, if they're going over their 5 or 10 or 25-year plan, they should have brought it into the LDP. It's not even in the new proposed LDP now. It's not even in that one. We've been going through that with SPG, with Wynne as chair on that. We've never even heard about it on our SPG. So I'm sorry.
No. So I think your question is, you've got an application for a site outside the LDP, and the LDP is a process. So why is this coming as part of a separate process, an application to the LDP? I think it's worth clarifying. Did you want to just come in on that point, Councillor Roberts?
Yeah,
okay.
If I may, and I think the important thing here is that if you look at the LDP and the amount of narrative that's in there regarding minerals is negative, isn't it? There's absolutely hardly anything. But you compare it to, say, to Bridgend Council, who in 2018 rewrote their LDP, including a document on minerals, which gives a very, very descriptive summary of how they deal with it, what they deal with it, the reasons why, the need in the area. And again, I keep on saying, you know, my daughter tells me we need a McDonald's in Rhythm. Yeah. But if there's not a qualified need, McDonald's won't come here. We are told categorically there is no need. And I do struggle a little bit with Councillor Mullin-James's point about we go and get it. Well, I'm sure, you know, we could go anywhere in the country. You know, there are houses being built in Denby where the topsoil's been shifted out to England. That happens, that's economy. So I don't think it will ever be in a situation that we're struggling for limestone in Denbighshire because of the infrastructures around the UK. So what I'm saying is, this is about a need that's not there and the impact of the people who live in the area and the environment. Those are the three things you've got to consider.
Okay. Councillor Mullen-James, please.
I don't think I said we'd struggle for limestone in this area, but in regard to the LDP, we don't have those sites in the LDP. They are being determined at the moment. So whether a piece of land comes in or not is not determined yet.
Okay, officers on that, and I'll bring a few more in, and then we've been debating, and now I will bring more in. I'm going to let officers just touch on the LDP part because I think it's important to clarify. Okay, officers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think we have had quite a good debate, and I'm sensing the room anyway. So I think what we probably need to do is start to focus a little bit on moving it forward to a decision. Just a few things that I just want to touch upon first, because there is a bit of a distinction, and it's all about language here, isn't it? It's all about understanding terminology, and planning is a complicated world. We've talked a little bit about allocations, talked a little bit about LDP boundaries. We've talked a little bit about need. The key thing also to remember here is that some of these things are quite long processes that we go through. So to develop a local development plan is quite a long process. To agree sort of sub-regional strategies around minerals is quite a long process. The quarry's obviously been in existence at this site for a very long period of time as well. So we've got to have regard to the fact that this is an existing quarry. But I think what we've got to try and focus on now is the evidence and the challenge that we could be under as a council and as a planning committee in relation to evidence in terms of making a decision. So some of the things that have been raised here, I've noted down in some of the councillors' comments. First, around the best and most versatile agricultural land. Well, again, and this isn't trying to influence members in any particular way, but it's officers' job now to sort of try and give that sort of rational approach and the argument which we've put into the report on some of these things, because fundamentally we've mentioned at the very start that Welsh Government have issued a holding direction. So first and foremost, Welsh Government could take it out of our hands and make a decision for us. There's also obviously, if the application is refused, there is a right of appeal against any decision. So again, if there's a right of appeal and the applicant takes up that right of appeal, it will be a Welsh Government minister or a planning inspector from the planning inspectorate Wales that will make the decision, and they will only make the decision on evidence. They will make a decision based on hard evidence in relation to some of these things that we've been debating. So best and most versatile agricultural land, is there an overriding need to go against that? We've consulted with the relevant part of Welsh Government on that, and as Hannah said, they've come back and said that they feel that in this instance that there is that overriding need. So the question for you, it's still a material planning consideration, the loss of best and most versatile agricultural land. But the question for members now is, have we got enough evidence to defend that within a planning appeal, or how would Welsh Government look at that? I'm just leaving that there because it is a material planning consideration. So that could be used in your defence. The issue around need, again, you've heard from Hannah, you've heard the debate around this issue of, is it the need specifically for Denbighshire, or is it the sub-regional need that we need to be aware of? Well, again, you need to start to think around whether in evidence, in any appeal or anywhere else that the Welsh Government might be thinking about this, would they look at the need for Denbighshire, or would they have regard to a sub-regional need? So I'm just going to leave that there as well. I'll bring Hannah in on the issue around that need in terms of the aggregate or the lime as well. The issue around the development boundary has been mentioned, and the issue around whether can we refuse it on the basis that this isn't within the development boundary. Well, again, your local development plan, your adopted local development plan at policy PSC 17 does specify in relation to minerals and an overriding need. So again, Hannah's explained why it wouldn't have been allocated within a pan, within the plan in terms of the LDP. So again, some of these things that I'm trying to tease out, because ultimately you're going to have to make a decision eventually on this, and we'll need a proposer and a seconder on the reasons to be given, because that's what
Okay.
Welsh Government... One final bit again, impact on SSSI had been mentioned. And again, Natural Resources Wales have been consulted, and they've suggested that whilst there are concerns, they could be mitigated through planning conditions. So again, as part of the decision-making process on planning applications, what members have to have regard to is, could this be mitigated through the imposition of planning conditions? So again, the impact on the SSSI, I needed to mention that as well. I'll leave it there for now.
But just on that, the North Wales Wildlife Trust also. So therefore, the Wildlife Trust have raised concerns.
There are concerns that could
Yeah,
be mitigated through condition, yeah.
But they have raised it. Okay, I'm going to bring, do you want to come in now, officers? I've got a couple more, and then I am going to go to the vote. So please think about anything you're going to say. So do you want to come in now, officers?
Thank you. We've discussed a lot about the need for aggregate, and based on the evidence for that's provided in the regional technical statement. But I think it's important to stress that 44% of the materials coming out of the quarry is agricultural lime. And that's based on the customers that are wanting the material. There are no kind of documents to say how much is needed. It's just evidenced by the customers wanting it. So I think, you know, a large proportion of the minerals out of this quarry are not going to aggregate. And in terms of the aggregate coming out, a large proportion is going within the company's existing concrete batching and asphalt plants. So that kind of links to the employment that in terms of that employment. And I think just to be clear on the LDP front, there's no allocation based on the evidence when the LDP was being drafted. The evidence for aggregate need is coming through the RTS. And within the local plan, policy PSE 17 criterion 2 says that if there is a local need, then that's why there's a criteria-based policy within the plan, so that it is within the plan, even though there's not an allocation or a site area of cert or preferred area. And the question of why wasn't this put forward in the plan? Well, any quarry operator wouldn't be putting forward an allocation knowing that there is no need. So does that make sense? There is back in 2009, when the evidence was being drawn up for the local plan, there was no demonstrable need for aggregates. That's why the regional technical statement's reviewed every 5 years, so that there can be evidence for any windfall sites coming forward. Any quarry operator wanting to extend the site wouldn't come forward. The extension of this site is coming forward because the operators who have purchased the site in recent years want to extend it. The former operator wasn't working it. It had been mothballed for so long. So therefore that would explain why no allocation was brought forward in area of search. In terms of the replacement plan, well, clearly there's an application in the process. So that may well explain, I can't speak for the operator, obviously that may well explain why there's no candidate site coming forward in the plan.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to bring it to a close. I've got a few more to speak, and then so I've got Councillor Hilders-Roberts, Councillor Jones, and then Councillor James, then Thomas, and then I will be going to the vote. So Councillor Hilders-Roberts, please,
Thank
drop
you,
the vote.
Chair. Just Paul, just to clarify on your quoting policies, so I thought I better go and quote a few policies. Just for clarity, this is an extension of an existing, but assessed as a new, yeah? That's just, okay. So I'm going to refer to policy PSE 16, buffer zones, yeah? Which says extensions to quarries will only be permitted where a suitable buffer can be retained, i.e. where such an extension would not cause other development to become part of a buffer, and where it can be demonstrated there is no unacceptable impact on the environment or human health. So I think the fact that as officers, you can't answer the carbon question, which is a fundamental question in a carbon emergency, says that the reason is the environment is the prime reason that this must be refused.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And can I also thank the officers for your input and your replies. I would expect nothing less than what we've heard from you. But from hearing the debate and lots of very eloquent people speaking around me who have far more experience than I do in these matters, I think they've expressed my thoughts entirely. So I won't reiterate and go after that. I think from listening to the debate that I can do nothing else except propose against officer recommendation that we go for a refusal on this, and I'm sure that's not coming as a shock to you possibly following the debate that we've just had. I can't see how we could justify this, and I understand that we need to put that as reasons for that. The main reasons, as we've just heard, is the impact on the protected species and the environment, and the impact that that could have on the environment, and the fact that the application is actually outside the designated development boundary of the LDP. So I'm going to cite those two. Thank you, Chair.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a proposal. Officers happy with that? Just before I go for the second bit.
Clearly not happy, Chair, but they are material planning considerations. Impact on the environment, impact on protected species were mentioned there. Again, what we'd have to just make sure we're all clear on before the planning committee makes the decision there is, you've mentioned protected species. We might need to hone in on a particular impact that's said there, in terms of, obviously, because we've got the NRW response, that would be just thrown back at us straight away in terms of NRW. So you just might want to emphasise that.
Just on that,
sorry.
We just clarify that that's the impact on the species in the SSSI and the, you know, the lack of
the impact on the triple SI. I think that's clear. Thank you.
No, sorry, Councillor Thomas.
Oh, sorry,
Yes, he's been waiting patiently. Talking about Councillor Thomas.
I thought the planning members would need to speak before I do.
I think they've had long enough. I'm happy to ring you in, sir.
Okay, what you're saying is Councillor Roberts has had long enough. Okay, no. So, bore da, Hannah. I realise you're in a bit of the hot seat this morning, Hannah, but you and I have been discussing this matter since 2017, I think it is. I sat on the strategic planning group, as did Councillor James here and the chair. We sat on that for 5 years, so we know the history of this. I've also attended all the reconvened meetings of the Quarry Liaison Group. We've had discussions there over the years. I still have a few concerns, but before we get to those, well, look, we're talking this morning about this regional technical statement at times. Could you explain your role here today? Are you here as the officer who works on behalf of that Wrexham, Flintshire and Denbighshire partnership? Yeah, so that's your role. So you're not actually a Denbighshire officer, are you? You work for Flintshire. Just for me to get that clear.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In our discussions, we have heard about the shortage of this type of aggregate in the sub-region. Now, most of it comes from Flintshire, and I remember us discussing in the rugby club, not of an evening, but during one of our afternoon meetings, of the fact that Flintshire wasn't able to meet its needs of exporting this limestone aggregate waste for projects in the northeast of England. Those were your words at the time, for the northeast of England, and also you mentioned HS2. And Dan, who was the officer who took this over from you for a number of years, also with our group mentioned the cross-border need for this aggregate, and HS2 was also mentioned. So I am very concerned, as has been said here, that there isn't this local need. As a cabinet member with responsibility for housing, I support that information we've had about the housing needs of Denbighshire, but the whole reason for being part of this sub-regional partnership is if we do need a little bit of limestone, we import it. If we want granite, we get it from Gwynedd. If we want sand, and if we need rock salt, we get it from Cheshire. Am I right? We import this. But we have this group, and Flintshire certainly has a need, but Denbighshire, I'm not convinced has a local need. I thought, Councillor, I'm a bit wary of venturing into agricultural matters because I've got Councillor Mervyn Parry sitting by my side there. But the other need which is being put forward is that this is needed locally for agricultural use. But my information about that is maybe it's not the right particle size for that. And even though steps have been taken to try and make it appear as though this is for local need, it may still be that that material has to be imported from outside the county because, and this is where it becomes, I'm sorry, Chair, you know, sometimes you're on a journey and somebody says, is there a doctor in the room? Well, we've heard a few scientific questions, so I'll admit, yes, I'm the scientist in the room, sorry about that. But particle size is important if you're spreading agricultural lime because it's an alkaline and rain falls on it, and rain is weak carbonic acid, it needs to dissolve. So there's a problem there with using our local large particles of that. So I can see you want to push the button on me. So I'm just going to finish by saying that I have attended all the meetings set up by Breeden and so on. I spent one evening listening to a geology expert who was the person who came along because he was explaining how the blasting works. And he admitted on that evening that limestone isn't like granite. It's got different structures within it. It dissolves in water. You can have gaps. You can have caves in it. That's why we go off to limestone areas to visit caves. And so it's quite simple for me as a scientist to understand why some of those residents who live nearby never feel any of the blasting, whereas a house next door, because it's on a slightly different structure in the limestone, is able to do that. And the expert on that evening agreed that limestone is not this one type of rock, but that it has different structures and different hardnesses. So it's quite possible that some of the reasons we have heard that the local residents are able to feel the blasting, and I believe all the data shows that all the blasting is below the set limits and so on, but that is possible with this kind of rock. So I think with that, before it becomes even more scientific, all I'm going to say is if this was a council project, we'd need a well-being of future generations assessment. And if we were doing that, is it right that our residents are going to be living so near to a quarry from now till 2048? Thank you, Chair.
Very shocking about. I was waiting. I wasn't trying to hurry you on, so I would excited if it come across like that. So, are we going to come back?
Yes,
Yes.
I can come back
Can
on
I'm asking everyone now if you can summarise, and then we do need to move on with it, I think.
Yep, certainly. Just to start in relation to Councillor Thomas, his original point there was around the role of Hannah. As I said at the very start of the meeting, we are part of a North Wales shared service in terms of minerals and waste. It's a sort of collaborative approach across the region in relation to all authorities using Hannah's team for any applications related to minerals and waste in their particular area. It's probably going to be a model that is going to have to be used more and more in relation to the resources that we have within councils to have these specialisms in particular areas. So in that regard, the planning application's been submitted to Denbighshire County Council. It's a Denbighshire County Council decision effectively that we're making today through planning committee. The technical expertise on that matter is regional, however, and therefore we have to bring Hannah in to act as case officer. But obviously, she's been working with officers of Denbighshire County Council in terms of preparing the reports, etc. So I don't think there's any sort of bias in relation to all of this, because clearly this particular planning application, it's not just a singular Denbighshire issue, is it? You've heard this morning that there is a regional aspect to all this and to minerals generally. So I hope that answers the question in relation to the role of Hannah. Do you want me to sort of try and sum up now, Chair, in relation to where we are in terms of...
Take a breath. So I'm just going to, and then I'll bring you in. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't think that's part of this, but thanks for that. He doesn't have a vote here. Okay. So I'm going to say, anyone else? I think we've had a good debate. I'm going to bring in officers to clarify what we're voting on, and then I'll just check we've got everyone down on the list, and I'm going to do the roll call of everyone. So I think we're all okay. Officers, can you just confirm the vote, how we're going to do it, just so everyone's clear, please? Make sure that I have seconded. No, we've got that. We've got that. Okay, so officers, can you come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yep, before we go to the roll call in relation to Planning Committee making the determination on this application here, just want to again re-emphasise to manage people's expectations that we won't be issuing a decision on this because of the holding direction that we've had from Welsh Government. So it's just to clarify that this is the Planning Committee making this decision. I think what we've had is we've had a proposer and a seconder, Councillor Delith Jones, Councillor Arwell Roberts, proposed and seconded to go against officer recommendation and to refuse. The reasons for refusing that were put forward was, from what I've written down, the potential negative impact on the protected species within the SSSI, and the fact that the development proposed is outside any development boundary within the local development plan. So I'm just going to pause there just to make sure that we're completely clear on those two reasons for refusal that have been put forward.
Yeah, that's what I said. Negative impact on protected species on the SSI and on the environment, and the fact that the application is outside the designated development boundary.
Yeah, so what we will do in relation to that, we've obviously got it on webcast. We've heard Councillor Delith Jones. The precise wording of the reasons for refusal, I think if members are in agreement, we can run those by the proposer and seconder before we sort of offer any document up to the Welsh Government on that. But yeah, so when we're going to the vote here...
Just got someone throwing eyes at me. So did you want to come in, Councillor James, just before we... Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify something, do we need to say something about the negative impacts on residents as well in terms of this, or is it all about the environment?
Well, that is for members. That is for members to make a determination. We've got one proposer and seconder at the moment. The proposer and seconder has given very clear reasons for refusal, but any other member can jump in now.
But I'll come to the proposer and seconder. Do you want to add that? That's a good point.
I'm very happy to include that. Yeah.
All right.
I apologise for not doing so in the first instance.
That's fine. And we're settled there.
Could you include air quality into that, please?
Yeah, I'm not going to start. So that's part of that. That'll be covered. So
can I just come back, because the whole debate has been around the environment, in my view, and not about the impact. I find this extremely difficult. I've waned from supporting the application, going against the application. I still have some issues, I have to say, and I might as well put my hands up and say that, and I'm really sorry about that. But it is an extremely difficult decision. It's probably one of the hardest decisions I think we as a committee have ever made. And I know you're going to shut me up.
No.
I just need to say that this has been very soul-searching and challenging. And thank you for reminding me that I probably won't sleep in the near future. But this is extremely difficult. We work in collaboration. We need to work in collaboration. The other thing quickly I want to ask, is this the only limestone quarry in Denbighshire that's active? Yeah, okay.
Okay, I get your point. And when you talk about the environment, when you're looking about the amount of responses about the environment and the amount of paperwork on the environment, it's not really strange that we've touched on that because it is important and a quarry is a big impact. Yeah, it does, but I think we're okay with that with the amount of work on it, but I get that. Right, I am definitely now going to bring officers in to confirm.
Just to follow on from what's been said there, can I just therefore qualify that I would like to add on to a further reason is the negative impact upon the amenity and well-being of the local residents, because I think we do need to look at this as a whole and holistic reasons for why we're looking at this. So we protect this speaker's environment outside, and
I am going to get the officers to read out just a summary of that before we talk about the voting. Because it's changed again. I want us to be absolutely clear on the reasons, and then we'll go to vote. Just summarise now. If you've got all that information, please.
Yes, I think we have, Chair. Thank you very much. So just to summarise, I think and again, we'll be careful with the wording, and we would like to run that wording by the local members just so that we're completely clear on it. I think one thing I would say before I just clarify that again, it goes back to the evidence base and the wording. I think we need to be quite careful on it. So again, going back to Councillor Arwell Roberts' point there, if we start specifying things like air pollution, noise, dust, etc., we would need an evidence base for that, and that might be difficult to then justify within any appeal setting. So I think what we're going to try and word it around is the potential negative impact on the environment, specifically relating to the SSSI. Secondly, the fact that the application is outside any development boundary within the adopted local development plan. And then thirdly, potential negative environmental impacts on residents living nearby. They're the sort of three reasons that I've heard, but we'll try and get the wording detailed up for you.
Okay, and just confirm we're going against, the recommendation is against, so how they voting, just to confirm that before the start. So we're all absolutely clear. Okay.
Yeah, I think we've got Councillor Harlan to come in, but just to clarify before we go to the vote, I think it's going to be quite clear what you need to do. The officer recommendation is to approve this application. So I think members would need to say, and I'm looking at the legal officer there, just a straightforward refuse.
I'll bring the legal officer in. Sorry,
Sure. My understanding is that the proposal which is on the table is to refuse planning permission. So the vote will be, if you want to refuse planning permission, you vote for the proposal. If you don't want to refuse planning permission, you vote against the proposal. So your response needs to be for or against. So if you wish to refuse planning permission, you vote for. If you do not wish to refuse planning permission, you vote against. And the reason for that is that the proposal that you are voting on is to refuse planning permission. So you need to say whether you are for or against that proposal. So saying for does not mean that you will be granting planning permission. You will be refusing.
Okay, Councillor Harlan, very, very quickly. Jock and Vow.
Just about the carbon emissions, the effect on climate change and the negativity in comparison to how we view our climate change emission strategy in Denbighshire.
I'll make sure that's touched on as any future debate. So, Jock and Vow, thanks for that.
Yes, sir.
Shall I turn on the mic? Right, we ready? All happy? I'm going to do the roll call. Please talk into your mic so everyone hears what you're saying. It's clear on anyone listening online. So, Jock and Vow, thank you. Councillor Chard, please.
Abstain.
Councillor Edwards, please.
A very definite for.
Councillor Elson, please.
For.
Councillor Justine Evans, please.
For.
Councillor Harlan, please.
For refusal.
Councillor Hilders Roberts, please.
For.
Councillor James, please.
For.
Councillor Jones, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Matthews, please.
4.
Councillor Mendes, please.
4.
Councillor Metri, please.
4.
Councillor Mullin-James, please.
4.
Councillor Paddy, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Roberts, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Sandilands, please.
Obliged.
And myself, Councillor Elfrid Williams, please.
Obliged.
And myself, Councillor Young, I'm 4. So that's been agreed that we refuse the application against officer recommendation, and that is 16-4 with 1 abstention. Jock and Bow, thank you very much. We'll have a break. We're going to have a break now. If we can come back in 10 minutes, please, members. There's drinks and...
Councillor Elfrid Williams has got
Okay, thank you, members. Thank you for that. Hope you enjoyed that. I will now move on swiftly to item number 6, page 111, code 4320230363 PF. Location is 46 the High Street, Prestatyn. The proposal is installation of roller shutter to front elevation. It's retrospective application. Officer recommendation is to grant. Do officers want to come in quickly or go? I'll go straight to the local member who's a committee member first. Councillor Harland, are you still there, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this application, I've received several representations about, and it appears to be a shutter affair across the front of a shop in Prestatyn. It is not that people seem to think that it should be a different colour to what it is, and as the local MP has in particular tried to unify the view of the high street almost shutter free on the outside, or he's attempting to do so. I'm not convinced that this is a real issue, to be quite honest with you. A lot of the shutters are on the inside of shops, and this one is for the outside, and it doesn't really seem to me to be a major issue, if I'm quite honest with you, with my constituents. Dear Chair.
Okay, I will bring in the committee members and then I'll bring in the other local member. So, Councillor Parry, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a retrospective application in a it's not in a conservation area within Denbighshire. I understand that there's a difference between the conservation area in Denbighshire and not the conservation area with the regard to roller shutter doors. The conversation with Officer Chris Evans about this in the past, and they've probably put their roller shutter doors up thinking there was no objection to it. It's a retrospective planning application come in now, so I think we should support this because this application, because it's in a non-conservation area. I think when we look at the conservation areas of Denbighshire, in RHYL and various other places, we have got roller shutter doors within conservation areas. So I think if we're going to jump on that one, I think we should sort those areas out completely before we go on to areas that are not in conservation area, and possibly as well make a note of it that in areas where we are in conservation area, not everybody knows they're in a conservation area, because if you're renting a place, it doesn't always tell you in your tenancy agreement that you're actually in a conservation area. The landlord might know, the property owner might know, but the tenant, when they're renting the property out, won't know that. And some guidance maybe on shop frontage might be an idea, because once you've spent your money on a small business like that on a roller shutter door, which aren't cheap, and then somebody comes and tells you to take it down and put it on the inside, putting one on the inside isn't quite as straightforward. You can't take the one off the outside and put it on the inside, so it's a complete scrap, that one, and the guy next door's not going to buy it off you because he can't put it up neither, because he's in a similar situation. So I'm supporting this application.
Jochen, thank you. Councillor Mendes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would disagree with my fellow councillor Parry and would urge the members to refuse this application for two reasons. First and foremost, it's a retrospective application, and there's too many planning breaches, or there's too many retrospective applications. If we allow retrospective planning applications to go through, it then makes a mockery of the whole planning process. So that's the first reason. The second reason is on aesthetics. It looks awful. And although Councillor Parry does point out that it's not in a conservation area, it is my understanding that the conservation area, there is a conservation area across the road or nearby. So I understand from a retail point of view that there is and there would be a need for security, but as Councillor Parry points out, you can actually put roller shutters or security screens on the inside with like a honeycomb effect, and they're more aesthetically pleasing. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just bring in officers to clarify the policies we're working to. So I understand, you know, you don't think it looks very well. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but I will just check the policy we're working on. Jochen, officers.
Thank you, Chair. Borodar Pau. Very quickly, just to go on to the issue of retrospective nature of the application, I would just remind members that whether or not an application is retrospective, that's not a material consideration. You should deal with all applications irrespective of whether it's retrospective. It's not a material planning consideration. Exactly, Mr. Councillor Mendes. But the real issue on this one is absolutely, as Councillor Mendes pointed out and Councillor Parry, it's the impact on the visual amenity of the area. It's not in the conservation area. It's very close to it. It's within metres of it. So the issue would be, does it affect the character and setting of the conservation area? Clearly, officers here have taken we've gone to our conservation officer who doesn't support it because of its proximity to the conservation area. Planning officers have looked at that, and we've also looked at their reasoning for security. And what we would like to try to get members to consider here is take the balance. If the shutters were internal, we probably wouldn't have an objection from the conservation officer. So do these external roller shutters have such a detrimental impact on the character of the conservation area and the street scene as to justify a refusal? I think I'd direct you to the photographs that are within the report, at the start of the report and in the report. And you can see how it's on a modern building. There's a cantilevered sort of concrete canopy over the front of it. There's a picture halfway down which actually you can see that looking down the street, that shot front, in officer's opinion, doesn't have a prominent position within the conservation area or even street scene. I'd also point out that it's partially perforated, so it still allows some light from within the shop to come through during the night time, so it doesn't create the sort of the dead frontage that the traditional metal solid roller shutters do, and which are more problematic. So I'd say yes, it's very much an unbalance. Security requirements for the shop, impact on the visual amenity of the area. That's the debate, really. Planning officers have come to their sort of considered a view that actually the harm's hard to sort of substantiate on this one. So we've recommended that permission should be granted. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that update. And I'll bring in Councillor Sandilands, please, who's been waiting patiently.
Thank you, Chair. I have seen this application. The first thing that the business owner gets is a bill for council rates. They don't get any planning. They don't know anything about planning. They don't need what they need. This is across the road from what is described as one of the most historic places in town, the old HSBC Bank, Midland Bank, which the architecture is known for. But what I would say is when Denver should communicate with business owners, they need to communicate quicker using the business rate system. They need to look at stopping this from happening in future. Perhaps a note on the business rates to say, have you checked your planning, what you need to do. I'm mindful whether to grant this or not. I'll listen to the other debate this morning. We do need to be very mindful that I know of personal knowledge. I had a shop literally a stone's throw away from this. We didn't have shutters. We were told by the conservation person we shouldn't put shutters in, as it affects the immediate area. I am very mindful of the content of this shop is of high worth and is attracting a lot of attention from different people. I certainly wouldn't like to see it go unsecured. So I'm in two minds whether or not to support this or not. It is a question of looking at the planning, though. As officers have just said, it's a black and white situation, literally. The jewelers next door has got shutters, but they are internal from those, not external like these. So I will just leave it at that, but I am mindful whether or not to support this or not. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I'm just going to ask for clarification of if it's not in the conservation area that's stated why it's before us today. I think just that clarification, just for members, and it'll pick up on some of the points and also the point on whether the council should be telling people. So it's not in the conservation. Why is it before us? Jock about.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just for clarity on what Councillor Gareth Sandilands had mentioned there, I think actually the jewellers adjacent does have an external roller shutter on that you can see from the photograph on page 115. But yeah, I think he summed it up as we'd said before, that the issue here is the visual amenity and the proximity to the conservation area. So I think in terms of why have we brought it to planning committee, I think it's one of those cases where there has been some concerns raised to us in relation to the visual impact of this in proximity to the conservation area. But we've also had people that are supporting a local business to try and secure its wares, etc. It's one of those cases that does throw up some localized issues. People locally might think that they don't like to see roller shutters on their high street. Other people will say we expect businesses to secure their shops and their wares, etc. So that was the reason that it was brought, because of that debate, and it was a nice soft one after the quarry. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. You're not allowed to mention that anymore. So we don't mind the clarification. I think that's helpful. I'm going to bring Councillor Matthews in, and then I'll bring in the local member who isn't on the committee. Councillor Matthews, please. Jock about.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul, for clarifying why it was brought to the committee. I read in detail, obviously, the reports that were submitted, and in my opinion, obviously it's not in a conservation area; it is close to it, and I think in terms of the acceptable compromise that's noted in the papers, in terms of the perforated shutters and whatever, I would support this application. Also, I don't think it has any sort of impact on the rest of the street either. This is a business owner who's just, obviously, Gareth mentioned high-end, high-value goods that are sold there next to a jeweller's. What I wouldn't want to see in Prestatyn High Street is another empty shop. And I think this is an acceptable compromise, and I would go along with the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Jock about. Thanks for that. Councillor Irvine, please. Jock about.
Good morning. Firstly, just to make the position quite clear, I was in business in the clothing trade in Prestatyn High Street for over 50 years. I'm not in business anymore. I'm retired from business. I have no business interest in the high street, and the properties we owned have long since been sold. So I've got no interest whatsoever. However, I can give you some context. If you go back a number of years, I had the most unfortunate experiences of being dragged out of bed at 2 a.m. in the morning on more than one occasion. And a particularly notable occasion about this time of year, when I was confronted standing in the high street to see our large plate glass window shattered and our entire sheepskin and leather coat stock ready for the Christmas trade gone. That is the stress that it brought to me personally. It nearly reduced me to, well, it did nothing for my mental health, as we say today. And the only way we could solve persistent raids of this note, because we had 4 or 5 over a relatively short period, was to install roller shutters of the perforated type. There was no other answer. The police told us that, security experts told us that. That's what one had to do, and we had to fight a planning battle then. So this particular business sells high-end products. It needs to protect its wares. I know exactly why. I think the compromise that the planners have come up with is entirely laudable, and I commend it to the planning committee and hope you will support it. Because what do you want at the end of the day? Do you want successful businesses selling nice quality merchandise, or do you want empty buildings because they cannot protect it? To me, it's a fairly straightforward decision for you to make. Thank you.
Giacomo, thanks for that. In Councillor James, please, if I may.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I've looked at this. Had it been a solid stainless steel shutter, it may well have entered a different debate, but I'm quite happy actually to support this application, and looking very forward to grant. I think Councillor Irvine is absolutely right. People need to protect their businesses. There's also an issue around, I guess, some insurance companies, particularly, well, these days, will probably insist on some sort of shutter thing to get decent insurance, to get insurance cover, and won't be tied any business. And I'm sure Councillor Irvine, with his experiences, I hope he was not in his pyjamas when he was standing at 2 o'clock in the high street, but I'm sure that he would be aware, and some of us who've been in business are aware that there are particular insurance requirements these days, and so I'm quite more than happy. I don't see it as a detrimental to this area at all, and I will be happy to propose that we.
Okay, we've got a proposal.
Oh, we have.
Yeah. Are you gonna? Have we had a seconder? Yeah, we've got a seconder. Okay.
Just to clarify, Chair, if I may, Councillor James made a point about insurance. It is correct that you'll find if you're insuring high-value products, such as a jeweller's shop or high-end clothing,
Can I remind
usually
members,
insurance companies want relevant
to
security.
talk through the chair, please? Talk through the chair, please, if you don't mind. Jochen, Councillor Roberts, please.
Ie, diolch yn fawr. Dwi'n cytuno fo be mae Hugh Irving wedi deud. Ys gen nhw'n byd I boeni am, yn siŵr o cael hwn drwad. Ond dwi rioed wedi clywed bod yna dre hefo gwyrdd, prestatyn green. What on earth is that? Is it a special kind of green? In other matters, on page 123, the Town Council suggested an alternate colour for the shutter known as prestatyn green. I didn't know they controlled green. What is all this about, please? Thank you.
I can answer that.
I don't answer that. That's okay. That's fine. So, was there anyone else wanted to? Did you want to come back in, Gareth? Not on the colour. I'm not going to have a debate on colour.
Well, I can say we have a Pantone that matches the street furniture called prestatyn green. That's all we know. That's what the manufacturers state. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else, or can I go to the vote? Okay, I'm going to go to the vote, if that's okay. Just confirm that the vote for us has been a long day. That's fine.
It has. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, in this instance, the proposal is to grant in accordance with the officer recommendations. So if you're in favour of this application and you want to go with the officer recommendation as well, then you'll just be saying for to grant or refuse if you want to refuse it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, thank you. Councillor Chard, please.
For.
Councillor Edwards, please. Councillor Elson, please. Councillor Ellis, please.
Ymddiheuriadau am fod yn hwyr, Gadeirydd, mi ydw i o blaid hwn.
Councillor Justin Evans, please.
Against.
Johnston on. Councillor Harlan, please.
For.
Councillor Hilda Roberts, I think, is gone. I'm trying to just no. Okay, Councillor James, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Jones, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Matthews, please.
For.
Councillor Mendes for.
Against.
Councillor Metri, please.
Oblate.
Councillor Mullen James, please.
For.
Councillor Paddy, please.
For.
Councillor Roberts, please.
Obliged.
Councillor Sandilands, please.
Obliged.
And myself is for. Councillor Young. Okay, so that office recommendation for grant has been agreed, and that is 12 for and 4 against. Jock and Vale, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move straight on to item 7, which is page 125, code 452023. 0443 PF. The location is 150 Road in RHYL, and the proposal change of use part of existing nursery to form dwelling and associated works. Local members Councillor Diana King, and the officer recommendation is to defer. Officers just want to come in on that before I go to the vote on that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just as a bit of information on the late rep sheets for you on this item. It's come to our attention that last week another application was submitted by the same applicant for the remainder of the site, which would mean that the actual total, if both applications are granted or dealt with, there would be a total number of 4 dwellings on that site. We think it's only fair that if they're going to pursue that second application, they should be considered at the same time. So officers want to have a chance to go back to the applicants just to say, you know, do you want to merge those two, or do you want to withdraw one of the applications? So we'll probably be reporting back in January, but we're asking for a deferral.
Okay, so I don't have a debate, but we just need someone to support and second.
Yeah.
Yeah, second. So I'm going to go straight to the vote.
Oh.
Matt. Okay. Okay, Councillor Chard, please.
Deferral, please.
Yeah, Edwards,
Yeah.
Edwards, please.
Deferral.
Councillor Ellis, please.
Oblate.
Councillor Elson, please.
Defer.
Councillor Evans, please.
Defer.
Councillor Holland, please. I think he might have gone now. Councillor James, please.
Defer.
Councillor Jones, please. Councillor Matthews, please.
Defer.
Councillor Mendes, please.
Defer.
Councillor Metri, please.
Defer.
Councillor Mullen James, please.
Defer.
Councillor Parry, please.
Defer.
Councillor Roberts, please.
Right.
Councillor Sandilands, please.
Defer.
And myself, Councillor Young, I'm for deferral. So that's been carried. That's 15 for deferral. So that is confirmed with officer recommendation. Jock and Vale. Okay, so it's item 8, policy update on addressing the nature emergency through the planning system, updated national planning policy for Charter 6 of Planning Policy Wales. Shall I bring in officers just to summarise?
Yeah,
Or,
he is on.
yeah, okay. Carsten, would you just like to come in to give us a summary to this, please? Jock and Vale, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair and other members.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me.
No. Like, give us a clue.
I'm still talking. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry.
Shall I can jump in, Chair, if you want.
Carsten, I'm just going to bring
Again?
Paul in, if that's okay. We can't hear you. Sorry, apologies. Thanks for sending. And Paul, can you just summarise, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is just an information item, really, so it's not up for any debate. As members, I think, are already aware, actually, from October, there was a change to Planning Policy Wales 11, Chapter 6, which deals with the nature emergency through the planning system. So it is basically specifying that all planning applications have to submit what's known as green infrastructure statements to try and show that any development proposals can provide a sort of net benefit in terms of biodiversity. So it was just an information report for members to digest in relation to what that policy change means. I think, in all honesty, a lot of the members of Planning Committee have already been made aware of this, both in terms of the previous debate this morning, but on previous applications at the last committee, I think officers had raised that. So if there are any questions, Carsten would be happy to whisper them to you. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, Councillor Jones, please.
I don't have particular, questions relating to the documents itself. It's more related to training events for us as members. I think it's a huge and comprehensive, and it's quite a big document that's going to have far-reaching effect on the decisions that we make. So I think, could you give us an idea of that?
I think that's a really valid point, and we've got the lead member here who I'm sure would support training on this for the members in the future. Jochen Bell.
Thank you, Chair. I think any new documents like this, I think that members need to be brought up to date, and I think the training is great.
Jochen Bell, so we've got the support there. I think that's a sensible approach. Officers on that, please.
Yeah, I think what we're actually waiting for, I think Carsten would acknowledge this as well, because it is quite a new change to planning policy. I think the Welsh Government themselves are actually going to provide some additional information and support to councils, both from an officer and a member perspective, really, in terms of training. So when we get a bit of training from Welsh Government, we'll give you the training. Thank you very much.
Okay. You're not telling me there's no training before, it's done afterwards. That makes sense. So all that's good. So Jochen Vale, we just note that. So item 9, swiftly moving on, is planning scheme of delegation review.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is a report that we've brought to you in relation to your planning scheme of delegation. So just to remind members what the planning scheme of delegation is, it's a document that's adopted by this planning committee that sets out what types of applications should be brought to planning committee for determination here, and what types of applications can be dealt with at officer level under delegated powers. Obviously, we're not changing anything in relation to a member request for a call-in. So at any point, any member can call in a planning application to planning committee. So I think that provides a safeguard for members that if they want an application heard here as opposed to an officer dealing with it. The slight change that we've made to this particular version of the scheme of delegation relates to our role and our input in nationally significant infrastructure projects and developments of national significance. So primarily they relate to sort of renewable energy schemes, wind farm schemes, offshore and onshore. We as a council aren't the decision maker on those types of applications. They go to Welsh ministers to make the final determination on those proposals. But we do have a role to play in those particular types of scheme. They're often quite time limited. So I know in the past we've had pressures on us to supply input to the developers and to Welsh Government as part of their pre-application consultations and as part of their local impact report requirements. Sometimes it's quite hard to meet those requirements and bring reports to planning committee. So what we're seeking as part of this slight change to the scheme of delegation is that any pre-application input that we want to provide as part of a particular NSIP or DNS proposal, or indeed the construction of a local impact report, that this be delegated to officers in agreement, however, with relevant local members and with relevant lead members. I think that just gives us that security that members have got that final sign-off, but it will help us avoid missing out on putting our comments in because we've missed the deadline. So that's the only change. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll bring a few in. Elton, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, very, very pleased to see this addition, because obviously over in CADEIRYDD we're inundated by developments of this nature, and I have been very much aware that we've been sort of almost defenceless against this sort of thing, but have the backing of Denbighshire and the planning department in particular will be a great help. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think that, you know, it must have been a nightmare for the member of Kevin Myriadig at this moment in time, and for officers. And I think that this is going to help things an awful lot for both and residents as well. Thank you.
Okay. Last but not least, Councillor Parry.
Just quickly, Chair, when's this likely to come in to force? Is it there now or?
If members are happy to make this amendment to the scheme of delegation, it'll be effective immediately. So what we're trying to do we're actually anticipating quite a number of renewable energy projects, either nationally significant infrastructure projects or developments of national significance coming in. A lot of them are cross-border. So obviously a lot of other authorities across North Wales already have these delegated powers to enable them to contribute to the process. So we're just trying to make sure that we're consistent with other local authorities.
Okay, thank you. I just noticed because the Alwen wind farm is open today, isn't it? And you know, and I'm sure there's lots of comments that we should make and support and whatever on that one. Really. So thank you.
I think that communication between lead member officers will help, and I think this will benefit everyone and give the need of quick responses when needed without missing out the democratic process. So that's good. So just quickly before we go, so Nadolig Llawen, Merry Christmas from me. Thanks for all your work on committee.
Sorry, Chair, we just need to vote on that change.
Do we?
Scheme of delegation.
Can I say happy Christmas? Are we all for that? Yeah. There we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Show of hands on there.
Yes. So all the best. Thanks for officers and work in the year, and yourself have a good restful break. See you in the new year. Jock and Val, thank you very much.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Bye.
Christmas.
Nadolig Llawen.